Battletech Historical Turning Points, Mallory's World, The Desolation of Combat, by Catalyst Games, read by Shrapnel.
Desolate Pass, Mallory's World, Draconis March, Federated Sun, 21 October 3013.
First Prince House Davion's face cracked in a grim, lopsided grin as the enemy Awesome crumpled to the broken canyon floor. His battered atlas eased back into the swirling dust, kicked up by the brief but furious battle. The Awesome was the last of the second sword of Light's Command Company assault lance, but the rest of the company was drawing near. Despite the inflated views others might spout in the tabloid treatises, the First Prince knew he was a capable mech warrior. Even so, he was hardly the match of the truly skilled and formidable samurai of the Combine, who were closing on his rearguard position, ever since sending the rest of his own command lance on up the pass. Orders some of them nearly disobeyed, until he shouted his throat raw for them to continue the retreat. It felt like he had become one with his mech. Ungainly and slow at the best of times under his guidance, the Atlas had since responded with a grace and fluidity he'd never before achieved, though he was sure the swirling grip played a large part in his enemy's weapons fire going astray. How he'd been able to avoid such violence for so long baffled him. Having single-handedly overcome 3 enemies only once before in his years of experience, he had in the past half hour dispatched an entire lance of assault mechs from the Draconis Combine's elite second sword of light. He pursed his lips as he noted a large number of the enemy closing in. Returns were intermittent with the geography of the valley obscuring his senses. He had read and been told innumerable times of grand, heroic last stands, though he'd never expected to be making one himself. But he knew that without slowing these pursuers, they would overtake his 4th Davion guards once again. At least the narrowing of the valley forced the enemy mechs to funnel through one at a time, bringing them one at a time into his targeting reticule. Ian closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying to make peace with the god he'd never really had time for. He hoped his men would make it far enough to form a defensible position before he was overcome. A long, slow breath rattled out of him as he tightened his grip on the controls. Through the settling dust, he spotted a Drak warhammer briefly among the twists and turns of the pass. Calmly, he took aim at where it would emerge from the last bend in the valley and prepared to fire. Every kill here would stall the enemy's relentless pursuit just that much longer. The warhammer dashed ungainly from the canyon's cover. The roar of the Atlas's Class 20 autocannon echoed off the rock walls. The shot slammed home, savaging the warhammer's left side with a jagged line from leg to torso. The enemy's return fire snapped and flit all around the Atlas, slamming into the dirt and scrub nearby, leaving Ian unscathed. Before he could swing his drifting reticule back on target, the warhammer slid behind the next bend in the valley. Suddenly, the comm crackled to life.
Sir. Sir.
The panicky voice belonged to Captain Hillness, his adjunct in the command company.
Fall back now. The Kellhounds are here. They'll cover your withdrawal.
For just an instant, Ian glanced at the comm panel. In that moment, his fatalism broke, and so did his focus. It took a second to realize what had happened. No longer did he feel the certainty of death upon his shoulders. Instead, it had fled with Hillness's words, replaced with a hope of potential rescue. All he had to do was hold on for a few more minutes and salvation would arrive. He silently thanked God for the reprieve, his gaze returning to the battlefield before him. Though he had taken his eyes from the cockpit's view for only a moment, it was one Ian instantly wanted back. The dust had blown open as a curtain, and through it stepped the Drak warhammer. He'd missed his opportunity to shove his payload into the enemy machine. Now, like a gunfighter from the ancient past, the Warhammer's arms levelled and spat their hellish energies. Time slowed for the first prince, crystallising with diamond clarity. A glint of light from the Warhammer's missile launcher as it caught a hint of the sun through the sudden break in the choking dust cloud. The red paint of the Drax Warhammer reflected the waning sunlight, the actinic flare of discharge. In that moment, Ian felt the familiar weight of the Neuro helmet, the warm embrace of his command couch, thoughts of his family and friends flashing in a haze of love and longing. As the crackling energies enveloped the cockpit with blue-violet lightning, First Prince Ian Davion thought it was the most beautiful sight he'd ever seen. The king is dead. Long live the king. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. And we just witnessed the death of Ian Davion, first Prince of the Federated Suns. Wow. So, Ian was actually really important to the world of Battletech and left a great legacy in the lore after he was gone. It was actually him that laid the foundation for the Federated Commonwealth with Katrina Steiner. His little brother Hans just took over after Ian's death and took all the credit. And it's where the immense hatred for the Combine came from. Well, stronger hatred anyway. So this has been my favourite story so far to record and produce. It's just been amazingly simplistic one-on-one combat between two great mech jocks. It had that little brief of spark of hope, which was then completely and utterly snuffed out by a double PPC wielding Warhammer, which won't agree with your face whether you're an Atlas or not. So what did you guys think? Did you think Ian and his dancing Atlas would survive, or did you see the end coming? And for those that already know the lore, I will excuse you from class and answering your homework. That's the end of this week's story. If you liked this, please leave a thumbs up and a comment. If you didn't like this, well, there's the other button. If you'd like to hear more, then please subscribe and hit the bell icon to be alerted to new episodes. I put one of these out a week, usually on a Friday, with a preview early on in the week. If you have any recommendations or stories you'd like to hear, then hit me up in the comments or DM me on Insta or email me, however you want to do it. I'd love to hear what you guys want to hear. So if I can tell it, I'm happy to do it. Anyway, my name is Shrapnel. Thank you for letting me into your ear holes and stay safe, everyone. Bye.